How do you find success as a writer, as a poet? Well, I'm the wrong person to ask because by most traditional metrics, I don't think you can consider me a successful writer yet. But let's take it from a friend of mine.
Hi, I am Alora Young. I am from Nashville, Tennessee. I am currently pursuing a PhD in a new field that I'm trying to develop, called spoken word pedagogy is what my bachelor's degree is in. And I want neurodivergent creativity to be my PhD field. I was the 5th Youth Poet Laureate of the Southern United States. I was a Presidential Scholar of the Arts, TEDx speaker twice. And, I wrote a book. The book is called Walking Gentry Home. The publisher is Penguin Random House, specifically Hogarth Imprint. And it chronicles 270 years of my family history in a small town in West Tennessee, entirely in verse poetry.
Some of Alora's other accolades include Scholastic Gold Medalist, an Americans for the Arts Roundtable Fellow, a National Arts and Humanities Month Ambassador, a recipient of the Princeton Prize in Race Relations, the Spring Robinson Literary Prize, the Lynn Arison Excellence in Writing Award, and the International Human Rights Day Rising Advocate Award. I could go on. So take it from her. I think she knows a thing or two about success in writing. But what does success actually mean as a writer?
For the recent future, for the part of my life where I've been a writer who could be considered successful, I have worked very hard to think about what I define success as. And I think success is if you have created a piece of art and it has gone into the world and it has helped somebody who needed help. And if your art does that, then you are a success, and no amount of accolades or movies or whatever can make you more successful than if your art is doing the purpose of art and helping other people.
Let me repeat and re-emphasize that definition of success. If you have created a piece of art and it has gone out into the world and it has helped somebody, that is success as a writer. And maybe you think that's easy for her to say, seeing as she does have many accolades. But as someone who's only ever published a single book review, I agree with Alora. A lot of people think publishing a book is like the end-all be-all of success as a writer, but traditional publishing isn't all it's cracked up to be. As one of the faculty in my MFA program, Clifford Thompson, put it, there are even novelists out there who publish, receive reviews from the New York Times, and still ultimately end up as quote-unquote failed novelists. As my advisor, Caleb Curtis, would say, don't overinvest in the need to publish. Achievement on the page is the marker of success. Remove yourself from the social element of writing and just focus on the page. He added that publications have changed. The institutions that uphold publication are different. And while Alora noted that a large part of success as a writer has to do with sharing your work with the world, there are many ways to do that beyond publishing. If you post a poem on Instagram, or read a poem at a local open mic, or even just bring a poem to an online workshop, you should consider all of those things a success, because many people are not so brave. Getting art out into the world in any form is amazing. One thing that all the faculty in my MFA program stress is that community is a large part of success as a writer. So find your community with whom you can share. And we'll talk more about that later. But don't worry, for those of you looking to publish in a journal or something, Alora has a lot of advice on that too. What do you think it takes to become a successful writer or poet?
Dedication. A lot of dedication. The thing about it is, being a successful poet is just getting rejected 10,000 times and getting accepted twice. And those 2 times, everybody's like, oh, you're amazing. You're the best poet in the world. And then the other 9,999 times, they're like, this is trash. We don't want it. Here's a template rejection. Go somewhere else. So I think what it takes to become a successful poet is you just have to be able to get rejected those 9,999 times and brush it off. Because I think the best piece of advice that I have received about, especially applying to literary magazines, is when you don't get accepted, it means very little. But when you do get accepted, it means a lot. So you just have to be comfortable with the fact that you're gonna get rejected. And you're going to have to get really good with that. You're going to have to be like, rejection, love it.
Even as someone who isn't in Alora's position, I can confirm this. Literary journals can receive up to 1,000 submissions for one issue and can only accept a tiny percentage of those works. So mathematically, it's more than likely you will be rejected multiple times before finding success. If you're a writer, you're probably familiar with this Stephen King quote, but I'm going to read it anyway. By the time I was 14, the nail in my wall would no longer support the weight of the rejection slips impaled upon it. I replaced the nail with a spike and went on writing. And that's Stephen King, one of the most prolific, celebrated, important writers of our time. If he faced that many rejections, don't feel bad when you do too. Granted, some authors do find some amount of success right out the gate, which is awesome for them, but they're in the minority. Odds are you will have to face rejection after rejection until you find an ounce of success, which means you'll have to put yourself in situations where you will be rejected. So much of being an author is just putting yourself out there. But the positive thing about that is you don't need to put too much pressure on yourself. Submit, submit, submit. And if you expect rejection every time, you'll either reach your expectations or you'll exceed them.
And the thing about it is, if you get rejected the 99 times, but you get one acceptance of a ridiculous ask that has no possibility of actually working, but then it does, suddenly you're so much closer to your goal of whatever your goal is, of achieving that dream, of achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. Because so much of success is just having the guts to ask.
Boom. So well said. So much of success is just having the guts to ask. Alora even told me that her goal for 2025 was to be rejected 100 times, and what an excellent goal that is. That's something totally within her control. She can't force 100 journals to accept her, but she can submit to 100 different journals, provided she finds them all. Notably, even though I might make it sound like rejection is easy, it is not, especially not at first. And as an autistic woman and someone who studies neurodivergence, Alora introduced me to the concept of rejection-sensitive dysphoria. To quote the Cleveland Clinic, rejection-sensitive dysphoria is when you experience severe emotional pain because of a failure or feeling rejected. This condition is linked to ADHD, and experts suspect it happens due to differences in brain structure. Those differences mean your brain can't regulate rejection-related emotions and behaviors, making them much more intense. And as far as I know, I'm not neurodivergent, but I still can't help but take rejection personally sometimes. It's so easy to get depressed over one rejection and think you're a bad writer because of it, but you cannot let that affect you. You just have to keep going. Because like Alora said, the pile of failures will not measure up to the successes. No one will see your failures but you, and many people will see your successes. Still, because rejection is so hard, I asked Alora for some of her strategies about how to deal with it.
Coping with rejection is never going to be easy, but you sort of have to be very good with the fact that you are good at whatever you do, and that getting rejected is not indicative of whether or not you are talented. So it's a lot of affirmation work. It's a lot of, I am good at this. People care about me. People like what I have to say. And if they don't, that's not a problem with me. My favorite thing for when I'm getting rejected a lot or I've lost a lot of competitions is I have a Google Doc full of every compliment I've ever been given. It sounds ridiculous, but it really works. And when I'm feeling really bad about getting rejected from this, that, or the third, I go to that Google Doc and I read all of the compliments and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be fine. I'm good at this. I have friends. We're gonna make it. Most of the good strategies for coping with rejection is just reminding yourself that rejection is not indicative of your potential for success.
Self-confidence is key, and what's more, if you keep writing, you will get better. Journals receive so many submissions, agents have to read so many books, and there's only so many they can choose. That's not a reflection on you. Like Alora, I also keep a little bank of nice things people have said to me. I often revisit the letters from my advisors in my MFA program, as well as positive comments viewers like you have left on my videos. That might sound silly, maybe even haughty, but it really works. But I think truly, the only way to cope with rejection is to face it head on. And the more you do it, the easier it will become.
The more you get rejected, the less it hurts, actually.
And what's awesome about poetry is that it's never too late nor too early to start. I asked Alora about her first success as a poet.
7th grade. I won the school Golden Shovel poem competition, and I got a $25 Visa gift card. And I got to perform my poem in front of the entire school. Like, we were in the auditorium, like the gym, not even like the one like where you do theater shows, like the gym. Everybody was there, and they loved it. And I was like, this is good too. Like, I was like, there's literally being on stage and performing a poem that I wrote and is seeing all of these people cheering for me and like understanding and experiencing something I wrote. I was like, wow, I'm hooked. Like this, there's no going back. We're in too deep now.
If you couldn't tell, Alora does a lot of spoken word poetry, so she's sort of entirely in her element when she's performing. But even though I don't do spoken word myself, I have to agree with her in that poetry is just addicting. Even though my poems aren't spoken word per se, I've still read them in front of people, and that energy is just electric. It really goes back to what Alora said at the start. Success is just sharing your work with the world. But whether you're a 7th grader or someone who's been writing for years, I wanted Alora to give her best advice to poets of all experience levels.
Well, for people who are just starting poetry, you're gonna have to write a lot of poetry. You're also gonna have to read a lot of poetry. If you're not reading a lot of poetry, it's gonna be really hard to write a lot of poetry that's good. But if for people who are more like in the world of poetry, who have been doing this for a while, I think the best advice is just apply to things. Apply to so many things. Apply to all of the things. Like if you don't think you're qualified, apply anyway. Just apply. Because like a lot of times if your poetry is good, it's a numbers game. So if your poetry is good, if you think you're a good poet, if people who professors or whatever have told you this is something you're good at, you just need to play the numbers game. Really, the more you submit, the more competition you submit to, the better research you do about competitions and places to get published, you're gonna get published. If you're good, you're gonna get published. It's just how often are you submitting? How much are you submitting? Where are you submitting?
Now, first, let me just say Alora is right. Oftentimes it is a numbers game. And she's also right in saying the more research you do, the better off you'll be. It's good to know what a journal is looking for, what they've published previously, what the editor likes, etc. And granted, this is a barrier to entry for some people. A lot of folks don't have the time to do the research in this economy. What's more, a lot of competitions or journals have a fee to submit, and some folks can't afford that either. Even so, I promise you can still find places to submit to that are free. And even if you don't have time to do the research, don't let that stop you. About a month ago, I was looking for places to submit book reviews, and I found 15 publications whose submissions were all free. Yeah, it took some time to find them, but I honestly think it was ultimately worth it in the end. I was proud of these book reviews, and I wanted these publications to see them, even if they ultimately didn't accept them. If research is the one thing that's stopping you, don't let it. Don't get me wrong, you should always read a journal's submission guidelines. If you break their rules, that will reflect poorly on you, your submission, and your future with that particular journal. But as long as your submission fits the guidelines, it doesn't matter if it's something the editor might not like. You'll still be putting your work out there. And maybe the next time you submit something to that journal, they'll remember your name, be impressed with your improvement, and have you in mind again in the future. All I'm really trying to say here is stop making excuses and start submitting. Be brave. You can do it.
You gotta get really, really brave. Just like ridiculously, uncouthly brave. The only reason I am where I am is because I read a lot of poetry, I write all the time, and I have a ridiculous amount of bravery that is probably concerning. That's all I did. I didn't do anything special. I just asked people if they would let me do things, and they were like, "Sure." And I was like, "Oh." It was completely a circumstance of my own ridiculous belief in myself.
I know it's very easy to doubt your work, its quality, and your abilities as a writer, but I promise that won't go away once you're published. You're still going to have to be brave, even after you find some material success as a writer. Take it from Alora, a writer with a book, a large following on social media, and accolades spilling out of her resume. Even she still gets imposter syndrome. But the reason she keeps going is because she truly loves poetry and manages to love her poetry in particular.
I love my work because I think you have to keep doing what you're doing. I think if you don't love yourself, if you don't love your work, if you're not completely passionate about your love of yourself and what you have to say and the necessity of what you have to say to the world and the state that it's in right now, you can't do it if you don't think you're right. You can't do it if you don't think it matters. So I love my work. And am I sometimes embarrassed of poems that I published when I was like 15? Occasionally. But I had something to say, and I had something to say I felt was important. And if a 15-year-old wrote the poem that I wrote when I was 15 and showed it to me, I wouldn't be embarrassed for them. I'd be like, good on you for caring that much. You have to look at your past self with the kindness you would want someone to look at a new 15-year-old who's doing what you were doing. And so if you don't treat your past self with kindness, you can't treat your current self with kindness. And I think that's the most valuable thing you can do in this life is be kind to yourself. Because the world will not always be kind to you. And if you're not kind to you, then you don't have a lot left. Do I ever get imposter syndrome? All the time. All the time. All the time. Constantly. Right now. In this moment. Imposter syndrome. Am I above it? Who knows? Do I just write in my notes app like I'm 16 years old and then delete it? Absolutely.
I mentioned this in a video I did about imposter syndrome a long time ago, but you really don't have the time to ask yourself whether you're a good writer. Either you're a writer or you're not. And sure, you might not be a published writer, but do you love writing? Can you not keep yourself from writing? If that's the case, then you are a writer. And moreover, if that's the case, then you're really gonna have to learn to love your work and develop confidence in it. Alora is so right. Treat your younger self with kindness. The writer you are now is not the writer you'll be forever, in the same way that the writer you are now is not the same writer you were at 15. You can have confidence in your work while also acknowledging that your work is going to change as you keep writing. I'll be honest, one of the things that keeps me from submitting more is my perfectionist attitude. I always think that I don't want to get published until I can produce the best poem possible. Because, I don't want to look like a fraud or a hack. But that idea is kind of silly when you think about it. The best poem I can produce now is not the same as the best poem I can produce down the line. And in either case, there will still be people who hate the best poem I can produce. Steve Almond describes a similar feeling in his craft book, Truth is the Arrow, Mercy is the Bow. To quote from his chapter called Funny is the New Deep, writers early in their careers tend to look down upon the comic impulse. I certainly did. Back in the mid-90s, when I was excreting my initial drafts, I wanted more than anything to be taken seriously. If enough people took me seriously, then I might start to take myself seriously, thereby dispelling the notion forever lurking at the gates of ambition that I was a sad clown who should quit writing and return to my given career as the world's most inept investigative reporter. Big awards and the vengeful omnipotence that came with them went to folks like Hemingway and Faulkner, who did not smile, let alone crack wise. I decided to ask Alora about this, the desire so many writers have to be taken seriously.
We all do want to be taken seriously. I've sort of been having a crisis about that because I started gaining a lot of followers on TikTok and Instagram. And I'm like, oh God, am I going to be an influencer? There's nothing wrong with being an influencer. That's what I'm realizing. That's like the whole process is like, there's nothing wrong with being an influencer. It's just like I had like done a whole thing where I was like, I'm an academic. Who cares? If people are buying your book, like, go crazy, go stupid. Like, live your best life, babe. You're an adult. It doesn't matter. Like, if you're an influencer and you're helping people, 10 out of 10, great job. If you're an academic and you're helping people, 10 out of 10, great job. And I think the thing about being taken seriously is that it's sort of a colonialist ideal. It's like a European colonial mindset that in order for your art to be genuine and good and valuable, you have to be a serious artist. And you have to be like a specific kind of serious artist who talks about death, and music or murder. That's what it is. The concept that you have to talk about specific things so that you can have humor or levity or joy in your art and be a serious artist is bullshit. My favorite poet ever of all time is Morgan Parker, and I was just holding that book 2 seconds ago. There it is. And she's hilarious. She's so funny. And like she just has things in her poetry that you would literally like stop and start cackling. Who cares if your poetry is taken seriously? Rupikar is a millionaire. That's all I'm gonna say.
As long as you're writing what you love and as long as you enjoy doing it, then who cares? It might be hard for your work to find a home if you're writing something out of the ordinary. But for me personally, I'd much prefer Out of the Ordinary than the same poems about love and death that I've read a million times before. I think of someone like Claudia Rankine. It was hard for people to publish poetry like Rankine's, that is, until Rankine started writing and publishing it. Nowadays, work like hers isn't all that uncommon, even though it was unique when she first started out. Just do your thing and you'll be fine. With that said, there is still often the desire to compare yourself to other writers. Trust me, I get that. There are probably writers the same age as you, younger than you even, who have seemingly achieved more. And that can be discouraging. But if you think about it, it shouldn't be discouraging, right? Like I said, with writing and with poetry, it's never too early nor too late to start. And the fact that other people are finding success won't keep you from achievement, I assure you.
Just because someone else is further in their career than you doesn't mean that the steps to getting where you need to be are going to be any less valuable. You can be publishing your first poem, and there can be a kid your age who's already written a book. And you know what? It doesn't matter. That kid having published a book does zero to impact your trajectory of your life, of your career, of your success. You don't have to compare yourself to everyone who does better than you because you're you and that's all you get in this life.
Alora and I talked a bit about the attention economy, how most people are kind of always just looking to move on to the next thing. And that's true. You shouldn't be too discouraged if you, say, publish a book and people stop talking about it after its initial release. That's, unfortunately, how the world works most of the time. Again, it's not a reflection on you or your talent. You've just got to keep going, no matter what everyone's talking about, no matter what anyone else is doing. And just knowing that there are some of you bad actors out there, let me say this plainly. Alora did not succeed because she is black. Her status in the protected classes is not the key to her career. I hate that I even have to say that, but I do, because I just know some of you out there think she's a DEI poet or some bullcrap like that. Alora has to deal with that so much that it was even a recurring idea in her book, and that was published before DEI was the big buzzword. In one poem, she recounted the experience of a student telling her he was going to be affirmative actioned out of getting into his dream school. So with the reality of such prejudice, I asked Alora what she would say to people who said her success has only come from her identity.
I'd like to see you write 18 books in 4 years. Like, you do it. Go do it. Go write 18 books in 4 years. Go be on CNN and the New York Times, the Washington Post, and perform, and don't freeze up and get scared and like crap out. Like, go do that. Go do 2 TED Talks. Like, go find an agent and then come back and talk to me. And it's not because I'm black. If I was white, I'm still as good of a poet as I am. You're gonna have to be okay with the fact that sometimes people are just doing things you're not willing to give yourself the credit to try. So maybe stop harping on how I got this or that because I was black and start harping on I'm gonna do this and that because I'm a good enough writer. Focus on you for a while, bud. Like, it's okay. Like, you're gonna be fine. Just keep going. You don't have to be racist to get what you want. It's okay. I promise you'll be fine. Just have faith in yourself and actually pursue things. Like, I don't know if you know this, but being racist on the internet is not going to help your writing career. Saying that people only got things because of their race is doing literally zero to get you the things you want. So maybe get off the internet and get on Google Docs.
Listen, if you're a writer, no matter your identity, I promise there are so many spaces for you. Seriously. Yes, there may be journals that are looking to publish work from a certain background, but those journals do not disqualify you from submitting elsewhere and from eventually getting published. Even so, no matter who you are, there's always the unfortunate chance that you can do everything in your power and still never reach publication. I don't want you to think like that, but just to get ahead of the naysayers who might comment such things down below, let's imagine that's the case. Let's imagine a world where you never achieve success in the traditional sense of the world. Does that mean you're a failure? Obviously not. One thing my advisor in my program asked me to reflect on this semester is why I come to poetry in the first place. There are many reasons, but for one thing, it fires the synapses in my brain like nothing else. It makes me feel something so unique. What's more, I honestly think poetry just makes me a better, happier person. Through poetry, I learn empathy for others. I learn to love a little better. And isn't that what this is all about?
If you didn't take the time to do what you love, to create art, to love the people in your life who matter to you, if you didn't take the time to put love into the world through both human connection and through art, then it doesn't matter. None of it matters. What matters is the love you leave behind. So if you loved passionately, if you loved creatively, if you did all you could to make the world a more beautiful place with your heart, not your accolades, then that's what matters. Making the world beautiful is what matters. Don't try to be successful, try to be happy. That's really it. If making art makes you happy, that's why you should be doing it. You shouldn't be doing it to try to be successful because you don't get to control that. And focusing your whole existence on things you can't control is a surefire way to be miserable.
One thing that I stressed, and the faculty in my program have stressed, is the importance of community in writing. As Alora put it,
You desperately, direly, so importantly, you need a writer's group. You need at least a writing buddy. It's hard to be a poet in a day and age where so few people actually care about poetry. It's just like, you have to find your people. You really just have to find your people. And they are out there and they do exist because we are on a Zoom call right now talking about poetry. And if they didn't exist, I'd be alone in my room talking about poetry.
so please, wherever you are, find your writing community. Find your writing buddy. I'm very fortunate to be in my MFA program, but if that's not an option for you right now, I promise there are other spaces for you. Look for poetry readings and open mics near you. In my case, at my local library, there's a writer's workshop that meets weekly, which is just so awesome, such a valuable resource. I encourage you to look for such spaces. Remember to be kind and open to everyone's art. The internet, for all its faults, is also kind of beautiful for the way it can bring people together. There are so many writing spaces online, which is just awesome. I remember when I used to post my poems on r/OC Poetry. It didn't take long at all to find people with whom I vibed. And there are so many options beyond Reddit. So as I end this video, I want to ask you, viewer, why do you come to poetry? Why do you write? I hope it's not for fame and fortune because, and I hate to break this to you, but odds are, poetry will not provide you with fame or fortune. So genuinely, what draws you to poetry? Why do you keep with it? And as long as I'm asking questions, I'll add these. How do you define success as a writer? What success have you found so far? Do you agree or disagree with me and Alora? Please tell me everything. And check out Alora's stuff. I got to read her book and listen to the audio, and I thought the audio in particular was awesome. Walking Gentry Home slots in beautifully with an expansive tradition of Black poets. I get shades of the Harlem Renaissance and Gwendolyn Brooks, along with contemporary writers like Danez Smith, Amanda Gorman, and the previously mentioned Claudia Rankine. This book is super accessible, and it's great for any aspiring spoken word poets. During my chat with Alora, she mentioned how stories in verse are great for beginner poets, and I so agree. She recommended The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, as well as its follow-up, Clap When You Land. These books, like Alora's, come with great audiobooks, which make them all the more accessible. Alora's other recommendations include 50 Things Kate Bush Taught Me About the Multiverse by Karina McGlynn, There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyoncé by Morgan Parker, Deaf Republic by Ilya Kaminsky, ... by Fadi Huda, My Brother Was an Aztec by Natalie Diaz, and Inheritance by Stephen Rains. I will include those below, as well as links to Alora's socials. Be sure to check out her Instagram and YouTube channel. She posts great stuff about poetry, art, education, and autism. Also, if you want to see my full interview with Alora, it's available for paid members on my Patreon. For as little as $3, you can listen to Alora and I talk about her book, her research, art, and so much more. To end, as always, I want to take these last few moments to thank my patrons. I truly cannot thank them enough for everything. Their support means so much to me, honestly. If you want to support the channel, you can donate too for some sweet perks like seeing videos early and access to the community Discord. You can also do all the things the algorithm likes. It really does help a lot, I promise. Feel free to follow me on my socials, but no matter what, keep reading, keep writing, and ultimately keep in mind, this is a rough draft.